What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to Collide live stream. I'm so glad you're here tonight. And it's May. We're in May now, May 6th. Feels like it's been forever. I don't know about you. I'm getting kind of sick of having to meet online. I'd much rather meet in person with you. And I'm just saying, I miss the time that we have together. I miss when we could be next to each other and be with each other and laugh with each other and instead of trying to talk through cameras and things like that. So I miss all that, and really I just wish that we could be back together. Wow. I don't know where that came from. That was weird. That was really weird. That that just felt like that came out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from. Well, anyway, welcome to Clyde Livestream. Like I said, we have a very fun game tonight, and so I hope that you will participate in our game. Our game tonight is called. Let's see if I can bring this up. It's called Famous Rivals. Famous Rivals. So this game is actually quite simple. What we will do is we're going to mention famous rivals, and then you will tell us whether or not you can answer some trivia questions about those things. So let's do that. Let's do that. So the first thing is, so here it is. Batman has the Joker. Apple has Android. And I have mornings. Famous rivals. Sure, we all have rivals, but let's see if we can all just get along and answer the following questions. So, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to ask a question. Question number one, what cola company launched the blind taste test against its rival? And then you're going to put the answer in the chat down there. So, put like question once, put like one, and then like type out the answer next to that. So if you're playing along, go ahead and do that right now. So I've seen that I definitely know Kendra's watching. Let me know in the chat where you're at. Let me know who's watching. We really want to know. But which of these cola companies, started the blind taste test? Was it Coke, Pepsi, or Dr. Pepper? Coke, Pepsi, or Dr. Pepper? I'm going to wait a few more seconds for some answers to see what we get, and then I will reveal the answer. I think my stream is kind of choppy right now. It's probably because I have too many things going on my computer at the moment. I really need a better computer to do all the things that we're doing right now. Autumn says Coke, which could be Kendra, could be Autumn. Not really sure. I think it's kind of both of them. The answer is Pepsi. Pepsi had the blind taste test. Pepsi had the blind taste test. Next question is this. Baseball rivals New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox have how many combined World Series championships? How many combined World Series championships do the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees have? Let us know. Question 2 down in the box. Hope you all are having a fantastic Wednesday night. Enjoying my tumbler. Wishing it had soda in it, but it is just water. Which do you prefer, Coke, Pepsi, or Dr. Pepper? I like Coke. Kendra said Pepsi to the last question. All right. Autumn says 35 World Series championships. The answer is 35. So I'm thinking that Autumn Googled it. That's what I'm thinking happened. All right, James Bond has his fair share of rivals, but how many actors have played James Bond? How many actors have played James Bond? Is it 5, 7, or 9? How many actors have played James Bond? Bond. James Bond. Who is your favorite? Was it Sean Connery? Was it Pierce Brosnan? Is it whoever plays him right now? I can't remember his name. He's relatively well known. I just can't remember his name. I say too many more, you might know the answer to this question. Those are the only 3 I can name. So, there you go. The answer to this question, how many actors have played James Bond, is 7. And if you know all of them, you know more than me about James Bond. All right, so Batman's rival, the Joker, first appeared in comics in what year? 1920, 1930, or 1940? 1920, 1930, or 1940? Let's see your answer to this question. Do you know? Do you know The Muffin Man? Not the question, but Shrek was a good movie. Shrek was a good movie. 1920, 1930, 1940. The answer is 1940. 1940. All right. The Aaron Burr / Alexander Hamilton duel was fought in what state on July 11th, 1804? I'm going to be completely real with everyone. I didn't even know this existed. If that makes me bad at history, maybe it does. But there you go. So, what state did it happen in? New Jersey, New York, or Pennsylvania? I guessed on this one. All right? I guessed on it. Do you know? Just a few more seconds now. The answer is New Jersey. New Jersey. All right. Next question in our famous rivals game. The rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan, those are universities, dates back to an actual war over what? A football game, high taxes, or the border? Which one does this rivalry begin with between Ohio State and Michigan? 2 universities. They are football rivals, but was that the beginning? Was the beginning a football game? Or was it high taxes or the border? I'm assuming between the states. All right. A few more seconds. It'd be weird if it was like the border between America and Canada. That would be weird. The answer is the border. The border is the answer. Way to go, Rachel. Good job. All right. Next question. Who was Rocky Balboa's Stars and Stripes shorts wearing rival? So that's the hint there, right? Who was his rival that wore Stars and Stripes pants? Who was that rival? Was it Clubber Lang? Was it Apollo Creed or Ivan Drago? Which of these 3 was his Star and Stripe short wearing rival? If you've seen Rocky, this should be an easy one. If you haven't, good luck. Make a good guess. All right. 3, 2, 1. The answer is Apollo Creed. Apollo Creed. He did wear those Stars and Stripes. Ivan Drago was from Russia. He would not have worn the Stars and Stripes. And Clubber Lang, I'm going to be honest. I think he was a real boxer, but I could be wrong. So here we go. Next question. Will Wheaton became Sheldon Cooper's rival when Will didn't sign an autograph, show up to a Star Trek convention, or follow him on Twitter? This is obviously a reference to the show Big Bang Theory, which, if you haven't seen that show, you might not know who either of these people are. But why did this rivalry begin? Put your best guess. Y'all, Rachel and Autumn both got that last question correct. Very good job. Way to go. Good work, team. Okay, so what's the answer here? What is the answer? The answer is he did not show up to a Star Trek convention. It should not be he did not show up in a Star Trek. It should be at a Star Trek convention. My bad. All right, next one. Long-standing rivals Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner have appeared in how many cartoons? 24, 48, or 72? 24, 48, or 72. Maybe you've seen all these episodes of Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. You know, the anvil and the dynamite and the boulders and all that stuff. How many episodes? 24, 48, 72. And the answer is 48. 48 episodes. It seems like more than that, but really, maybe it just seems that way because it almost always seems the same. All right, last question here. Last question. The real-life deadly rival between what two families lasted over a decade? Was it the Murphys and the Jacksons, the Hatfields and the McCoys, or the Smiths and the Joneses? Which one of these is a real-life, actual, factual family rivalry? Do you know the answer? Do you know the answer to this question? I have seen a few specials on the History Channel about these families. Maybe you've seen those. Maybe you know them. Maybe you know who they are. And the answer is the Hatfields and the McCoys. If you got that one, congratulations. Let me know how many you got correct in the chat, and then give yourself a pat on the back. Congratulations. You are super good at this game. You're good at knowing your rivals. All right. With that, we're going to put that away for a moment, and we are going to have a really special time tonight where one of our very own, our seniors, Kendra Hoover, is going to be she's going to be on the stream with me. I'm just going to pull up her Skype here, and we are going to stream, and she's going to tell us a bit of a testimony, and I'm going to ask her some questions, and she's going to do that. Kendra, can you hear me? Okay, you're muted, so you need to... There you go. Yes, now I can hear you. Very good. Oh, can you hear me? Awesome. All right. I can see you. I can hear you. You can hear me. And you can't see me, though, so that's... I'm just going to let everyone know that Kendra... well, she can see me on the stream, so there's that. So, Kendra, I asked you to come on to our stream and talk in front of all these hundreds of people that are watching right now. It's really not that many. But Kendra, if you know anything about Kendra, Kendra is she is a servant. She has been part of our tech team for a long time, and so she's actually probably more comfortable being back in the tech booth and helping out in that way than she is like ever getting on front of a stage in front of a crowd. And so that's okay. We're like, so this is just to say, for Kendra to do this, it means a lot, and we are excited to get to hear from her. So Kendra, thank you for doing this. All right, so I wanted to bring you on because I wanted you to talk about something that has been going on with you for almost 2 years, maybe at this point. Yeah, almost 2 years, and that is you had some health issues that came up almost 2 years ago. And why don't you just kind of tell us about kind of, you know, that how that came about and kind of the process of you know, going to all the doctors and everything that you did. And you could probably talk about this for 30 minutes because I know how many doctors visits y'all did. But yeah, why don't you just go ahead and tell everyone who's watching, you know, kind of about that, what that looked like.
And
Hey, oh,
after,
sorry. I hate to interrupt you just real quick. Uh, this is my bad. Rachel thankfully said that she couldn't hear you. I had my desktop audio muted, so nobody heard the beginning of that. So why don't you go ahead and start over again?
okay. Okay. So it's a very long story, but I will give you the shortened version. Almost 2 years ago, the summer before my junior year of high school, I passed out during a summer workout. And after that, I started having a lot of difficulty kind of functioning. I was extremely tired all the time. I had bad chest pain when I tried to work out. I couldn't breathe. I was really weak. And it was just really, really scary because we started going to doctor's appointments to try and figure out what was wrong with me. And none of them could tell us what was wrong. And I went to a normal doctor. I went to a cardiologist. I went to a pediatrician. I went to Cook's Hospital in Dallas twice. And basically, the only thing that I could learn was that I have some form of chronic fatigue syndrome, and nobody specializes in that. So they kind of said, here's what you have. We can't do anything about it. Have a nice life. So that was just, it was really hard because we didn't even find out what was wrong for almost a year. I mean, it took a very long time and lots of doctor's appointments. And that whole time, I was still doing sports, trying to tough through the exhaustion and the difficulty breathing and all of that while doing volleyball and still trying to work out and stay on varsity. So that was really hard. And it was just really scary not knowing what was wrong with me.
Yeah, and that I remember that time. Also just like I remember praying, with your family, for your family, for you, and trying to be like, oh man, what is going on? And I know that that must have been frustrating. Um, kind of tell us what what was going through your head in terms of like, you know, your spirit, like your walk with God. How was that like? Um, how did that get affected by this? Like, because certainly the thought, maybe not, but maybe the thought might be like, God, why am I going through this? Like, why is this happening? Like, why me? And so, did that ever cross your mind?
That definitely did. And I feel like that crosses almost everybody's mind when something bad happens to them. Um, and I was really just, I was scared. I didn't know what was going on. It was affecting every aspect of my life, and I was frustrated. And I didn't understand why it was happening. Like, I didn't understand what was going on or why. But one thing that I really just had to do was I really had to lean on my faith, and I had to trust that no matter how bad things seemed, or no matter how frustrating it was, or how much I wished it would go away, I had to just have faith that there was a reason for it and that something good was going to come out of it. And I actually thought about the book of Job a lot,
Hmm.
where he had everything taken away from him, and he all this bad stuff happened to him, but he still just kept his faith and trusted God. And so actually God helped me through everything so much, because I knew that even if I didn't understand what was going on or what was happening, that he did, and that he had a plan for it, and he was somehow going to make it all work out for my best interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I guess kind of the question is right, is is has there been anything? What have been kind of the positives that you've seen? Have there been any positives that have come out of this whole experience?
There have definitely been positives. One thing that also really, other than my faith, that helped me get through all of the hard times was my friends and my family.
Hmm.
And because there were times where I could barely function, and I had to rely on the people around me to just help me get through the day. And so it really just, I learned who my true friends were and how much they love me, because you would not believe how absolutely supportive and loving they were. and it just showed me how loved I was. And so that was really great, just to know how loved I was.
Mm-hmm.
And it also kind of just taught me to take better care of myself, because I had to start being more aware of when I was getting tired or when I wasn't feeling good and all that. So I just kind of became more aware of how I was feeling, and I learned like how to take care of myself, and I learned how to function when I was really, really tired, and how to push through when things are hard and do it even when I don't feel like doing it. And so I really just learned how to push through the hard times and keep going even when I'm struggling and I don't really want to fight anymore.
Yeah, and that's really important thing to learn, not just like for how we feel physically, but also like sometimes we go through those patches in our life, in our walk with God, where we go, I don't know how to go any further, but I've got to find that way. I've got to, and ultimately I'd say that that looks like leaning on God and trusting in Him, um, and it sounds like that's kind of what you did. To kind of for a lighter question here, kind of a lighter note question, you had to go on a very strict diet for quite some time, right?
Yes.
How long were you on this diet?
5 months.
5 months. What was the thing like? If there was like one thing or a handful of things that you missed not eating during those 5 months, what was it?
Bread. I couldn't eat bread. It was awful. Um,
Not,
and just sugar.
yes, not Sour Patch Kids or
No, no sugar, no bread. It
yeah.
was no potatoes either.
Oh man, like
It was awful.
that's like three big things right there. It's like no sugar, no bread, no potatoes. They should have just like the fourth thing. They should have been like nothing good. You, you,
If
you
it
can't
tastes, you can't eat it.
you can't have good food ever again. Nothing fun for you.
That's pretty much what they. I mean, it's not far off.
One more question here as we get done with this. Um, what what if you could give like one piece of maybe wisdom or encouragement to other students out there who might be going through a testing or a tough trial right now. It might not even, might not be anything health wise, but it could be any number of things. What would be some encouragement that you would give to those students?
I think it would be just, and I know this is what everybody says, but it's true. Just trust in God's plan, because even if you don't see it, and you may not see it for a very long time, there will be something good that comes out of everything that happens to you. And God always has a plan to just turn the bad into good and to use it. And He always has your best interest at heart, even when it doesn't seem like it. You just have to trust Him,
Yeah,
and it will get better
mhm.
eventually.
I think it's in Romans, right, where it says God is working all things for good of those who love Him, right? And
Yeah,
so
I think that's where that is.
there it is. There it is. Autumn knows.
Mom knows it.
Autumn knows. Yeah, Romans 8:28. Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah. Follow God. He's working all things out for good, even things that are bad. He's working them for good. Right. So, thank you so much, Kendra, for that testimony and that encouragement. I really appreciate it coming on, and I know that everyone else appreciates it too. So thank you so much.
No problem.
Wave goodbye as I hang up our Skype call.
Bye.
Bye. All right. See you, Kendra.
Bye.
Okay. So, and there she goes. All right, there we go. She was frozen because I hung up on her, and then she stayed on the screen for a minute. All right, so that was really great. Thank you, Kendra, once again for being a part of that. Tonight is our third week of in His image, and I think actually kind of I didn't really plan it this way. I didn't, but I think what Kendra's story plays a little bit into what we're going to talk about tonight, um, and and it might not make sense right away, why it kind of plays into what we're going to talk about tonight, but we'll get there eventually. But tonight, like I said, is our third week of In His Image, and there is the little logo in the bottom corner, wherever, however we point to it. So I kind of want to ask a question to start off, or maybe you've like kind of been in an experience like this. Maybe you've seen something like this where you're invited to something, or someone says, "Hey, come to this thing. We need your help. We want you to be there." And then you go to this thing, and you get there, and it turns out that they didn't really need you at all. You showed up, and there was really nothing for you to do, right? So maybe it's maybe someone goes, "Hey, hey, can I have your help? Can you come over and help? I'm cleaning out, I'm cleaning out a garage or whatever." I don't know if this scenario ever happens to you. It may not, but they say, "Hey, come over, clean out the garage," and this person invites like a dozen people, and then you get there, and it's done in 2 minutes, which is great, but it's also like I feel like I really wasn't needed. Like I really wasn't, like, me being here wasn't significant, wasn't valuable, wasn't important. And it's like I kind of feel like I planned my whole day around this thing, and then I didn't even need to be here, right? And so it's just kind of like, when you think about that, you go, what was the point? Like, did me being here really matter? Like, was it even important that I was here? And so it kind of gets you to think about maybe some deeper questions, and then kind of where I wanted to head tonight is and this is, we're jumping right in. We're jumping in real deep, real quick to kind of the first question I want to ask tonight, right? Is, do you have value? Do you have value? Do you, as an individual, as a person, do you have value, right? And you, like, some of you might be like, absolutely, like you're really confident, and you're like, I have value because I can do this, this, and this. I have these skills, I have these abilities. Like, of course I have value, like, because I can do things that, like, give me value, right? And so that's certainly one way to look at it. But another way to look at it might be to go, well, I don't know. Do I really contribute anything of value? Do what I bring to the table, does it really have value? And maybe you're thinking, and I don't even think that, like, honestly, if you're here, I hope you're not here, because I don't think this is a great place to be. If you're sitting there going, I don't think I have value. Like, I don't think there's anything I contribute at all. Like, I don't think I have value. That's not a great place. But sometimes that is a question, right, that comes into our minds. Like, do I have value, right? Am I valuable? And we may not phrase it that way, right? The question may not be phrased like, do I have value, or like, do I bring anything of value? Because maybe you don't think like that. But like, maybe it's in, different ways. Like, will people miss me if I'm not here? Or like, would it really matter? Like, would people even know if I wasn't here, right? And like, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, sometimes we might have thoughts like that, and we don't maybe phrase it like, do I have value? But we might phrase it a different way, right? And kind of another thing that when you think about what you're like, how you, like, do you have value? Another thing you might ask is, what is it that gives a person value? Right? What is it that actually gives somebody value? Like, is it that they have a skill or an ability? Is it they know a bunch? Is it that they're physically gifted? Is it that somebody wants them, right? Because sometimes, like, when we think about when a possession, when an object has value, a lot of times that is because other people want that thing, right? And if nobody wants a thing, right, a material thing, right, like if I had like this, I've got a little screwdriver here because I have a screwdriver, right? So like if everyone had a dozen of these screwdrivers in their home, this individual screwdriver would almost have no value, right? Because like it's just like everyone's already got a dozen of them, and so I have no need to. I don't need another one, and so it is almost valueless, right? And so so something objects in our world are valuable because people want them, because there's like a demand for them, right? If nobody wanted a object or a thing, it wouldn't be worth anything. Like gold, right, has a lot of value, right? A lot of people want it. But if nobody wanted gold, if there was no reason to want gold, like if it didn't serve any purpose, it wouldn't be much different than dirt or rocks, right? Probably be more like rocks, like no, people aren't paying a ton of money for rocks, right? You can find them just about anywhere, and they're just out there, right? But gold has a higher value because people want it, right? And so what is it that gives like something a value, right? We know that because people want it, but what does it give us that gives a person value? Is it a similar thing, right? Is there a certain level that you have to achieve, right, to be valuable as a person, or is it more of like something else, right? And that's where I want us to start tonight. And we kind of, if you've been a part of our In His Image series, then you have seen some of the stuff we're about to talk about, kind of rehashing some old stuff. But I want to talk about this idea that is out in culture, right? That is not a good idea. That is not a biblical idea. It's not an idea that Christians hold to. And it all has to do with how we value people, right? And here's the idea. We've seen this before, right? We've seen this almost every week. I think we've seen it every week now. This is person, body. This is a dichotomy, right? This is basically a graphical image of explaining what personhood theory is, which is this idea put forth by secular culture that says that a person is different than your body, right? So that's why we have this line, right? It's actually to say that the person, you as a person, right, what defines you as a person is actually different and not associated with your body, right? And we said the last 2 weeks, we've said that this is a false dichotomy, which means that that it's this idea that being a person and being a body are two separate entities, right? Like your body does not make you a person, is what personhood theory says. But a Christian worldview says, no, this is false. In fact, your personhood and your body are inseparable. That are actually you cannot distinguish the two. You can't separate them and say they're separate. We talked a lot about that the first week, and we want to start there again today because it actually really helps us understand this idea of value, right? Because personhood theory, and by the way, I plug this book every week, and I'm going to plug it again. Here it is, Love Thy Body by Nancy Pearcey. Great book. A lot of what we're talking about in this series is in this book. If you want to know more about the things we're talking about in this series and that kind of thing, grab yourself this book. Go buy it on Amazon or whatever. Maybe you can come talk to me and I can let you borrow it, that kind of thing. But it's a great book, very helpful on these things. But here's the thing. This idea that the body is separate than who we are as a person is not a Christian idea. Right? This is a secular idea. So, another question that I want us to ask, right, when it comes to this idea is the human body an integral part of the person, sharing in its dignity? This is actually a question that Pearcey submits in her book. She wants to know, is the human body an integral part of the person, sharing in its dignity? So basically saying, is the body actually a part of who we are, right? The short answer is yes. And that's what this whole series is about, right? We're every week we're talking about different things. We're talking about how this plays out in different areas. But the fact is that our body is actually a part of who we are as a person, and we can't separate those two. And we're going to get back more to this idea of personhood theory, right? Which says that who you are as a person is not defined by your body, but it's defined and determined by something else, right? And so tonight we're actually talking about two big issues that all revolve around this idea of whether or not the body is actually part of our person, right? Are they integral, right? Are they connected, or are they separate? And these two big things that we want to talk about tonight are abortion and euthanasia. Now, quick definitions in case you don't know. If you were to just say euthanasia, right, and you didn't see how it was spelled, you might think that that's teenagers in China, right? But that's not what euthanasia is. It's actually something pretty serious and not really a laughing matter, but that's kind of, when you say euthanasia, sometimes people think you're talking about teenagers, but it's nothing like that. So abortion, quick definition: abortion is the taking of a human baby that has not been born yet inside of the mother's womb and killing it and then removing it from the mother's womb before it can be born. That is what an abortion is, right? Now, some people wouldn't like my definition of abortion because they might choose, instead to say of a human baby that has been born, they might say fetus, they might say a clump of cells. But because we believe that life begins at conception as a Christian worldview, right? And we will actually look at some scripture here in just a second that supports this. And biology supports this. It's not just that we look to the Bible and say, well, the Bible says that life begins at conception. No, we actually have verifiable scientific evidence that says, no, human life begins when conception happens. So abortion, that is abortion. Euthanasia is the assisted killing of somebody, whether that be young or old, this kind of thing. Typically, we see this happen. We see that people choose to be euthanized, or people euthanize someone else who can't make that decision because they either are old, they're in pain, or they have reduced cognitive ability, right? Like their brain function is lower than it once was by a significant amount. And so euthanasia is the assisted killing of somebody that either by choice or someone else is choosing for them to be killed. Oftentimes with the intentions that, oh, this is actually going to help them, right? They won't have to suffer this way, or sometimes it'll be framed as their burden to society, right? And that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about tonight. So these are two obviously not easy subjects, not light subjects to talk about, but they are so important when it comes to this conversation about being made in His image. And if we are made in His image, if we are, as people, we are not just souls, but we are souls and bodies. We're not just persons. We are persons and body, right? We are both of those things. Then what we do with our bodies actually does matter, right? And so I want to start off by looking at a passage of scripture that's found in Psalms and is written by David. Now, this is Psalms 139, 13 through 16. And before we put it up on the screen, we start reading it, I want to just kind of say that, so David's writing this, and he's talking, he's being vulnerable with God, and he's talking, and in this poem, right, this psalm, he's talking about how God knew him and was a part of his creation, him being made, right, him being born, even before he was born. Right, and so it's such an interesting passage. Some of you might have even be very familiar with this passage. It is a popular one, but let's look at it here. It says, For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. Isn't that incredible? So David is saying that God put him together even before he was born, right? So David understands that there's something about the process that God is a part of our creation, a part of us being made, that happens even before, like, you can show the woman can show visible signs that she is pregnant, right? And that's even before you're actually born, right? Verse 14 says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. And it continues, verse 15, my frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret and intricately woven in the depths of the earth, right? And verse 16 says, your eyes saw my unformed substance. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. So David is describing that how before he was even created, before he was even conceived, God knew his days, right? I just want you to think about that for a second. God knows about your life, that even the life you haven't yet lived, he knew about it before you were even born, before you were even conceived. That's impressive, right? That's a powerful God that we serve. And that's a really, really loving and caring God, because he cares so much to know us that intimately, right? And so, your eyes saw my unformed substance, in the book were written, every day, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when you were yet, when as yet there were none of them. So before we even knew of them, before anybody knew of who David was, God knew everything that was going to happen to him. That is incredible, right? And so the God who knows you, who cares you, who loves about you, thinks highly of you, right? And in Genesis, we've looked at the last 2 weeks. In Genesis, it actually says, Genesis chapter 1, that we were made in his image, right? In God's image, he made male and female. He made both male and female, all human beings. He made them in his image. And that's why we've titled this series. And because we are made in his image, and no other created thing in the universe is made in God's image. In Genesis, the only thing that is said that way is about humans. So we as humans have intrinsic value, and we matter so much to God because we were made in his image. And that is such a huge thing to get when we're talking about abortion and euthanasia, is that like our value, in fact, does not come from anything that, somebody can say or that someone can put on you, or you have to achieve so much. No, in fact, you have value because God made you the way that you are. He made you in his image. Just by being alive, you have value to God. And that is a radical idea, right? When Christianity started, and even today, culture does not agree with this, right? Everything about culture does not say that you matter just because you exist. Just because you are born does not mean you have value to culture. That is something exclusive to Christianity. Because, and we'll kind of talk about this, but today, right, people will make arguments, right? The arguments that people will make for abortion go something like this. They'll go, well, it's not a person, right? They're not born. They're not so they don't matter, right? They don't have value because they're not born yet, right? Or they're not a person. Well, you start to question, you go, what makes a person, right? Just does being born make someone a person? Because they're not born yet, but they still have value. They're still a person, right? And people who, it's interesting because science has actually helped us as Christians a long way to understand what is actually happening in the womb, right? And a few years ago, they had some microscopic cameras that they were looking at petri dishes that they had an egg in, like an egg from a woman, and they had sperm from the man, and they had under a microscope, and they were looking. This is fantastic. You can go online and you can see this video. You know, obviously, Google with care, because you can Google some weird stuff and find weird things. But there's a video online where you can see that when a sperm fertilizes an egg, there's actually a fireworks type of reaction that happens. There's like this explosion of light that actually occurs at this, like, you have to, like, you know, how small these things actually are, right? You have to have like a microscope to see this, but there's a literal, like, chemical flash of light that happens when the egg is fertilized, and that's when conception happens, right? So when you first had life as a person, right, in your mother's womb, when the sperm met the egg, right, when that happened, life starts, and it's such a powerful thing. There's actually a flash that happens, right? This chemical reaction, right? And things like this help us to see, wait, like, life is actually beginning here. Now, that's not like the only thing that we look at, but I just thought that was really interesting, that you can actually go, wow, there is like some real stuff happening even at the point of conception. And any person who looks at science cannot deny that what is in a mother's womb is a living being. Now, could it live on its own? No, but you couldn't live on your own if you were like a 3-year-old. You would probably die in a matter of hours, right? So to say, well, because people will make the argument, well, you're not a person unless you can take care of yourself, right? Unless you're self-sustaining, right? Well, that would mean that basically anybody under a certain age is not a person, right? Even if you're born. So it's this moving target, right? This moving target to say, when does a person become a person, right? When does a human being become a person? Under personhood theory, it's this moving target, right? Well, how do you say that someone becomes a person, right? If it's not based on biology, if it's not based on, okay, they are a human being that has life. Because that's the Christian worldview to say is, do they have, like, is it a living human being? Even though it's in a womb, is it a living human being? Then it has value, right? Because that person, that human being exists. Personhood theory says that, well, you don't have value until a certain point in your life. Whether that be birth, whether that be until you have cognitive ability, where you can, like, actually, maybe some people say, hey, you've got to be able to talk. Maybe some people will say you have to know how to do algebra, which, like, a lot of middle schoolers are now not people, right? You know, or maybe it has to be, well, you have to show that you can, like, respond to things, right? What's the point? Like, at what point is somebody a person, right? And if your point is birth, like, what's the difference between that baby when they're born and 2 days earlier? Not much. There's not much difference there. Because we actually see now more and more people are being born, right, and living, who are born premature. More and more babies who are born premature are actually living now. We can even see babies be born, 2, 3, 4 months before they're supposed to be due, and the care at hospitals now, the science has come so far that we can help those babies fully develop and live perfectly normal lives. Like, so when does a baby become a person, right? If they can actually, recover, now, obviously not on their own, but no one's saying that you have to do it on your own, because if that's the case, like I said, where does it go, right? And so this is all pointing to personhood theory, and this idea that you're not a person until you meet a certain criteria is very subjective, and there's no landing place. Where the Christian worldview says, hey, here's an easy way to determine if someone is a person. Are they a human being? Right? Do they have human DNA? Are they alive? Then they're a person and they're valued by God. Nancy Pearcey, who wrote this book, she has a quote in her book, and this is what it says. It says, a Christian concept of personhood depends not on what I can do, but on who I am. That I am created in the image of God, and that God has called me into existence and continues to know and love me. Human beings do not need to earn the right to be treated as creatures of great value. Our dignity is intrinsic, rooted in the fact that God made us, knows us, and loves us. That's a powerful quote, and those are such great words right there. So, if we get our value, and here's to answer our value question: do you have value? Right? What is it that gives a person value? It's really simple. The Christian worldview says, and the biblical worldview says this. It says you get your value from God who loves you and created you. You don't get it from anything else. It's not about what you do. It's not about where you're from. It's about who you are. It's about whose you are. You are God's. You are made in the image of God. And because of that, you have inherent, intrinsic value. And that is great news. That is great news. But if this is true, if every person has value, if every person has value because every person is made in the image of God, and it's not based on what they can do or what they can't do or what abilities they have or how much brain function they have or are they able to take care of themselves, that is not what defines a person. According to Scripture, what defines a person is being made in the image of God. And because they have value. So, what is that? How does that affect abortion? How does that affect euthanasia? It says that we actually shouldn't look to kill anyone, right? We shouldn't be looking to abort babies in the womb. We shouldn't be looking to participate in infanticide, which is killing a baby after they've been born, right? Because personhood theory would go, well, that baby really doesn't have personhood status yet, even though they've been born, so it's okay to kill them. And then euthanasia. You get to a certain age or your mental ability declines for whatever reason, and you can't, or maybe you can't take care of yourself, it's okay. We'll just get rid of them. We'll just kill them. They have no more value to society anymore. But Christ says, no, you have value because you're made in my image. And that is such a radical different worldview from what culture says. Because culture says, especially to women, right, who get pregnant, and here's the deal. Our culture today makes pregnancy look like a burden. Looks like something you should avoid. Almost like a disease that you catch, right? It's like, oh, I got pregnant? Oh, man. You know, and sometimes the question is, well, what are you going to do? Right? Like, well, what? And I understand that's a hard situation, right? Especially if you're not married, right? You're not in that committed relationship, and you have a child. That is a hard thing. You're looking at a hard road in front of you, and so I can understand why people think, hey, I need to have an abortion because it's going to be hard for me. And we can't. And it's not that we shouldn't be sympathetic to those people. It's not that we shouldn't want to help those people, because we should. There are plenty of Christian organizations and charities that help with pregnancy care, right? That want to help mothers who are in a tough situation, right? They want to do all they can to help them because they want to see this child live, right? And these groups make no bones about it. Like, they want to help this child live, but they also want to help the mother. They care about both. And so this whole idea of us having value, and it's not based on some requirement that we meet. It says, hey, abortion, euthanasia, these things are off the table for Christians. And because we don't do this, we are radically different than culture, right? And it's not because we have like some crazy moral high ground and we want to see people suffer. No, That's not it at all. It's because God values every person, and we want to value them too. We are not just our souls or our minds, right? Or our physical bodies. We are all of those things, right? And just because we may be hampered in one of those areas, right, physically or mentally, does not mean that we have any less value. Whereas secular worldview would say that it does. So, what is our bottom line tonight? What's the thing that we want to look at? It's this: treat all people with the same value that God gave you. You know, we've heard the golden rule: is treat others how you want to be treated. This is kind of a play off of that. Treat all people with the same value that God gave you. You first need to understand that God gave you value. That you are valued in the image of, in God's eyes, because you were made in his image. And we should treat all people, born, unborn, old, young, whatever, we need to treat all people as if we have the same value that God gave you, right? So treat all people with the same value that God gave you. And that will begin to change the way you see all these things. Because if we have to realize that, like, just because our bodies are broken and damaged and our brain is not what it used to be, that doesn't mean that we have less value. Right? That doesn't mean that we just get to pick and choose when to end life. Right? That's not what God wants. So treat all people with the same value that God gave you. Now, I want to make a couple more points before we wrap up here, and that's this: that some people would say, you know, some people who are you know, quite frankly, they're okay with abortion, or they want abortion because they care about the mother. Right? I can understand this argument. I understand where this argument comes from, but in fact, abortion is bad for children and for women. And I think everyone understands the argument that yeah, abortion is bad for children because it kills children, right? That makes sense. I think even people who are for abortion can understand that argument, right? But they may not agree that child is a person, but they can understand that if you see that child as a person that is valued by God, they get why you wouldn't want to, but they might not say that abortion is bad for women, because, like we said earlier in the example, that a single woman gets pregnant, and this could affect her life in a negative way because she has a child that maybe she can't take care of, right? So how would that be bad for women if this could take her out of a bad situation? And so you know, people go, well, how is abortion bad for women? Abortion is bad for women for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is that it devalues and disrespects, right? Devalues and disrespects how, it devalues and disrespects women's role in the reproduction process. It basically says, hey, we understand that God gave you this ability to give birth, and that is a wonderful, miraculous gift, but we're just going to take that away. Like, we don't view that very highly because it's inconvenient at times, right? Now, also, when we look at abortion, when we look at infanticide in the history of the world, this is not a new phenomenon. This is something that's been happening for centuries and millennia, right? Back in biblical times, the Roman Empire and before them the Greeks, they would, if someone got pregnant and it was an unwanted pregnancy, right? They had abortions. They did abortions back then. They might abort in a certain way, right? But also, if that mother gave birth to that child, they would actually take the child and they would leave it. They would just kind of abandon the child, and let nature take its course. And they would do infanticide through neglect. It would be, hey, we're just going to take this baby that nobody wants, and we're going to put it outside and not take care of it, and then eventually the baby would die. It's brutal. It's rough stuff. But this has been happening throughout all of history. This is not a new thing. Christianity came along and said, no, all the church, over and over again, church fathers throughout church history have said, hey, like abortion, not good. It's not good to kill babies. It's not good to kill unborn babies. You know why? Because they're made in the image of God. They're valuable. They have value. Like, we are taking that away. We are playing God in this scenario. Right? And so through this, because we're saying, hey, the women's role in reproduction, we're just going to take that away. We're just going to say, not a big deal. It's actually bad for women in that way. And so one last passage, one last verse I want to look at is in Matthew 25, verse 40. If you have your Bibles, you can flip there, or you can look on the screen. This actually comes at the end of Jesus telling a parable, and he says this, and he actually talks about widows and basically all these different people in society that can't stand up for themselves. And this is what he says at the end of this. He says, and the king will answer them. So obviously talking about God in this metaphor. And the king will answer them, truly, truly, I say to you, this is Jesus, right? Truly, truly, I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me. So, when we help those who cannot help themselves, when we help the less fortunate, the needy, we are actually, Jesus is saying that we are helping, we are ministering to Jesus when we minister to these people, right? Because Jesus came to help those who are the most needy, right? And really, that's all of us. But specifically those people who cannot stand up for us, he's saying, whenever you help them, you're actually helping me. And who is more helpless in this world than the unborn, the infants, the elderly, the mentally disabled, right? The physically disabled? Who is more helpless than these people? Who could use us to be there and say, hey, you still have value, and I want to help. I don't want to see you taken from this world prematurely. You still have value. You still have meaning. So when we look at abortion, we look at euthanasia, from a Christian worldview, from a biblical perspective, we have to say that these things are not helping the least of these. They're hurting the least of these. That we are not just our mind or our soul. We are actually, our body is part of who we are. And that even if it's broken, even if it's helpless, that's still part of who we are. We are not separated from our body. Our personhood and our body are not separate things. They're one. And that's how God made it, in his image. So what do? We need to care for all life. We need to care for all life. We don't need to look to take life, right? Unnecessarily, right? We do not need to look to abort, to euthanize, to murder, right? All these things. We need to care for all life, because all life matters to God. All life is valuable to him. And the second thing is this, is we need to stand up for those who can't defend themselves, right? And sometimes this looks like helping at a pregnancy care center, right? Helping a Christian organization that looks to give value to the unborn, that looks to give value to the elderly, right? When you go and you spend time in a nursing home, right? To society, to secular world, nursing homes, that's just a place where we store people who aren't meaningful or valuable to life, to society anymore, right? They serve no purpose. If you simply look at life as what your value is, what you can contribute, right? Then elderly have no value, right? They cannot contribute a whole lot to society, especially people in nursing homes. So we need to stand up for those. Those people deserve our love. They deserve us to love them. They deserve us to care about them. And we need to stand up for those people. We need to stand up whenever we see people neglecting any kind of human life. So, with that, as we wrap up week 3 of In His Image. We've got 2 more weeks of this. We're going to talk, and it's going to get we're going to talk about some even more stuff. We're going to talk about homosexuality next week and gender identity the last week, and how being made in His image affects those things. But tonight, as we wrap up, I want to remember that you need to treat not just you, not just me, but we need to treat all people with the same value that God gave you. All right, let's go ahead and pray, and then we will do some quick announcements. Lord, thank you so much that you give us the value, that we don't need to earn value, we don't need to define value. Lord, I pray that we would be people that would stand up for those who who can't stand it for themselves. That we would be protectors of all life. That we are radically different than culture, not for no good reason, Lord, but because you value life and we should do the same. Lord, thank you for everything you do for us. Thank you for giving us life. We ask you this in your name. Amen. All right, so we've got a couple of announcements. All right, so let's put that away. All right, first thing, here's our social medias. If you don't follow us on those social medias. There they are. You can pause it, but there they are. Okay, then we have Remind. If you want to get updates, text at GCBCYM to 81010, and you will get those updates. Part of those updates is you will see our Zoom meeting link for our Clyde small group. That's Sundays at 11. Those are great. This week at our Clyde small group on Zoom, we're actually going to play some games as a part, in addition to our normal discussion questions and just good time spent together, even though we're on Zoom. Last thing, Camp Collide. Camp Collide, as of right now, is still happening, June 19th through 23rd. Now, this is like a day-by-day thing. This could change. It could stay the same. It could be bumped back. Who knows? We don't know. But what I want you to know is that we are doing everything we can to have camp. We're very excited about camp. I hope that we get to go to camp, and I hope we can do it in a safe way, because camp is such an important part of what we do throughout the year. It's always a great time. It's always a great time that God gets to, we get to take a break and God speaks into us, and we get to have a fun time at camp, doing all the camp things that we do. Online worship, here, it's on our website. There's the website, boom, boom. Go check that out Sunday at 10 a.m. And then once that's over, come over to Zoom meeting with us and hang out there. I'll say this, I don't have a slide for this, but this Sunday is going to be our last online worship service as a church for now. Because on May 17th, we are going to be going back to meeting in person. We'll also record the service and put it online. There's a lot of guidelines we have to follow, some restrictions and things like that. If you're going to go, we would love to have you. We're going to have 2 services, a 9 and a 10:30. That's on the 17th of May. We will have places where you can say you're coming, so we can make sure we have space, because we have limited space because of the social distancing requirements. The recommendation is that if you're 65 or older, which maybe there's people who are watching this who are that old, or you have a serious pre-existing condition that makes you more susceptible to coronavirus, maybe you don't come. Okay? You don't come. You watch online. The video will be online, because last thing we want to do is someone come in and give it to someone who could be critically affected by it. So we don't want anyone to get it. We're asking everyone to wear a mask. We're going to have lots of gloves to open doors, so you don't have to open doors and that kind of thing. You're going to sit 6 feet apart. So all that, that's going to happen. We're going to have more information about that, but that'll be not this Sunday, but next Sunday, the 17th. With that, thank you so much for watching. I hope that everybody has a fantastic night, and I will see y'all later.